Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Jessica Hathaway, Editor-in-Chief of National Fisherman Magazine. And today I have with me Ryan Bradley, who is the Executive Director of Mississippi Commercial Fisheries United. He is a longtime commercial fisherman, a vessel owner, seafood dealer, and business owner. And he's also a National Fisherman Highliner. Thank you for joining me, Ryan.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for having me.
So, Ryan, I just found out that you have recently joined the board of the Gulf Seafood Foundation. Can you tell me a little bit about the work you're going to be doing there?
Well, I've been watching this Gulf Seafood Foundation for a number of years. They've had a real strong coalition across our Gulf region, and they've been active in Washington advocating for the seafood industry. So, to me, it felt like a natural fit to join their board when they asked, and I think that will help amplify the efforts that we have ongoing here in Mississippi and in Washington as well to help all commercial fishermen across America.
That's great to hear. Thank you. I also just wanted to add that I love your hat.
Oh, I need a couple more of them. I'm wearing them out.
I'll send you some more. Maybe we should send them out to everybody who can't go get a haircut right now, huh?
Yes, good idea.
So today we're going to be focusing on the president's executive order that was published last week, published and signed, and that's getting widespread support from fishing companies and processors, and of course a lot of fishing communities, but also some criticism from some fishermen and groups that support localized wild capture fisheries.
Yeah.
I did a quick count and noticed that the word aquaculture in this EO is mentioned 46 times, while fishery and fisheries combined are mentioned 10 times together.
Mm-hmm.
So right off the bat, I was a little skeptical about the benefits to wild fisheries that we might see from this order. So can you tell me what, in your opinion, is the most important takeaway for commercial fishermen?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of fishermen and fishermen organizations across the country that share your same sentiments and your same analysis of the executive order that President Trump issued on May 7th. And, it's unfortunate that we see all of this aquaculture language, jammed into an executive order, that's talks about promoting American seafood and competitiveness. I think that maybe we need do a little better job educating President Trump and Congress about, we have a tremendous capability through our traditional harvesting methods as commercial fishermen to harvest wild caught seafood, and it makes sense to maximize that effort before we start down this road of aquaculture. It's not to take away from the feasibility of it, but the numbers just don't make sense when you look at it, on the back of a napkin.
Right. And I know that you and I have talked about this before, that aquaculture gets painted with a really wide brush and really it means so many different things and so many things that aren't easy to lump together under one name. Aquaculture, I know you have in Mississippi a lot of oyster aquaculture that has been really beneficial to your local fishermen and markets. So that's, I guess, part of the question that I have is that, what aquaculture means to fishermen and fishing grounds and territories and transit zones really varies depending on the type of aquaculture you're talking about. And this could even be referring to land-based aquaculture and will be, realistically speaking. So I want to ask you, I know that you work a lot with trying to solve the problems of IUU fishing, illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing, and that this is a significant problem in the Gulf of Mexico. So can you talk a little bit about Section 5, which specifically addresses combating IUU?
Yeah, so a couple things that come to mind is one specific in the Gulf. We have one big problem is with the Mexican launches that come across from Mexico waters into the U.S. waters. And, they're catching tremendous amounts of red snapper, grouper, amberjack. There's no telling what all they're catching, but millions of pounds annually. And it's being shipped right back into America, undercutting American fishermen. So that's a big thing, I'm sure. There's a lot of international IUU that's going on, but locally, we'd like to look at the IUU that's taking place right here in our own backyard. There's a lot of unlicensed recreational fish sales that are taking place, and it's really having a tremendous impact on our local seafood sales and price. So, we're looking at some things with this. Can they do a better job enforcing some of that? And I would like to see if there's anything that we could do to get some funding to going to promote traceability, voluntarily, where we can get fishermen tagging their fish. I think that's one good way to close the door on some of this illegal fishing. And it'll help us tell a story of who's actually supplying their seafood. And I think the American public would be really astounded to find out that so much of this is going on, where unlicensed, unreported fish are being sold on the black market. And I think it's something that we can address in a couple different ways. So hopefully we can get something positive out of that.
Yeah, I love that idea of some federal funding to get traceability standards and implementation, and helping fishermen.
And again, I just want to say voluntary. I'm not for pushing any mandatory regulations down on American workers or industry. But if there's voluntary programs out there that can fund and finance some of this traceability for people who want to take advantage of it and can see the potential with it. So just want to be clear on that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I think that really leads perfectly into the question of international seafood trade. We're talking about IUU fishing, traceability. What are you hoping to see come out of this for trade regulations?
Well, I could tell you, I'll monitor closely trade groups in my region, like the Southern Shrimp Alliance. They're the go-to organization for shrimpers in the South that are really working hard on a number of international measures. There's so much fraud that goes on internationally in the seafood industry. Transshipments to avoid tariffs, all kinds of contamination with antibiotics and God knows what in this imported product. A lot of it's farm raised, grown in very harsh conditions, polluted conditions. I've seen some of the videos on this stuff that we don't want coming into our country. So hopefully we can identify some of that and stop it from coming into the country. But I also think that there may be some opportunities for export of American product. I think either Americans are going to have to buy American, which is, I'm hoping all this coronavirus is going to cause a strong push for a domestic buy American everything, not just in the seafood. But if that doesn't come around quick enough, I think there's a lot of countries that'll be willing to pay top dollar for American seafood. And so maybe there's some trade deals that can be reached that can buy some of our surplus in the short term while we work to work out our supply chain issues here domestically.
Yeah, absolutely. Healthy input leads to a healthy immune system, right? So good quality food is critical right now.
And I think it goes back to the aquaculture debate. Our wild American seafood is just some of the most healthy, sustainable seafood with the lowest carbon footprint when it comes to harvesting this stuff of any protein source on planet Earth. So it only makes sense to support wild harvest because it's sustainable and it's the healthiest option for us. So
yeah, absolutely. If we can just get people eating it, and
Yeah.
willing to try new things. I think that's the most important, is eating a variety of seafood and not being afraid to do things like cook whole fish, which I completely understand is not really my go-to. But
Mhm.
there's a major issue with processing right now in all ports in the country. So if we can get people um, you know
Mhm.
taking home whole fish and cooking it, then you've eliminated a huge barrier to getting
Right.
wild fish on people's plates.
Well, you're really seeing our independent operators, the real importance of these people coming to light now as these major operations with the big plants and all are having to shut down. It's your independent operator that's operating solely or on a small crew that can continue to operate without threat of this coronavirus pandemic and get food to the American public. So these are the people who have really been forgotten about for the last decade or more. As we've seen really, the downturn of our American seafood industry in many sectors, many fisheries across America. So we're hoping that this is really alerted people and will enlighten folks in the importance of our domestic seafood production and our tremendous capacity to feed the American people. And it's just something that we should never take for granted. And hopefully we can awaken the American public of just how important this is.
Yeah, I agree completely, Ryan. All right, so before we wrap this up, I did want to ask you a quick question about this $300 million earmark
Mhm.
from the CARES Act that we finally saw um, some regulations coming down from Commerce and NOAA last week. I know that there's still a lot of details to be determined, but can you just tell me, what are you telling your membership and other fishermen in Mississippi about what to do next?
Yeah, well, we really are just waiting on guidance from our state to see how they're going to interact with us. The process that we know is that each regional fishery, interstate fishery commission, will be handling this award money for each region. So you're going to have to work with that body. A lot of our industry fellows are used to going to these commission meetings. I know in my region in the Gulf, they have these Gulf States Commission meetings twice a year, and they usually last a week. And we go to them regularly. We have relations with these people. So we're going to definitely be reaching out to see what the process is going to be. And the good thing about that, in that money, they've really hampered the administrative costs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like two or
Is it?
3%.
Yeah, I think it's 2%. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great thing. So a lot of people are saying, oh, they're going to eat up, they're going to steal all this money. That's not what's going to happen. It's going to go to the fishery participants. But I'm also trying to verify the language that's in there. I think you have to show at least a 35% loss.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at that, how to make sure that people qualify, and that's going to be an important step of the process. But it's going to be interesting to see how this process is pulled together because, like I said, these commissions only meet twice a year. So they're going to have to convene some kind of special meeting here pretty soon if they want to get this funds out pretty quickly. So, I would encourage industry folks to press the people that they know in their state agencies, their state marine resource agencies, because those people are a part of these commissions. And one thing that is concerning to me is that there's not a whole lot of industry representation on these commissions. It's mostly state agency and federal agency folks. And so I'm concerned about the voice and the input of the stakeholders in this process. But all we can do is just continue to engage with those folks right now. So
Yeah, we are concerned. We continue to be concerned. We will always be concerned. So your advice is for fishermen who are interested in filing for some of these funds to contact the head of their DMR or Fish and Game, whoever oversees those regulations in their state, and specifically ask them about these funds being filtered through the regional commissions.
I expect, the average fisherman, they're going to have to wait for their state agency to come back to them with guidance on, hey, this is the application process to apply. But in the meantime, it doesn't hurt to contact these folks and making sure that your needs and your voice and your industry is well represented. Every state has a different dollar amount allocation, and included in this is charter, fishing as well. And so making sure that the commercial sector is getting their fair share. That's what we're after right now. And, you know, if you don't get vocal and voice your needs, you may not get everything you hope for.
Right. Well, I really appreciate the info that you've given us here today, Ryan, and thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we get going?
I just wanted to say, I know you had mentioned the aquaculture stuff, and you didn't quite get to some questions about the nuances between the oyster aquaculture, and I just wanted to say, for the people that's really concerned about the aquaculture language in the executive order, that it's a tightrope to walk, because in Mississippi, a lot of our traditional oystermen have gone to this off bottom oyster farming aquaculture, where they're heavily dependent on the aquaculture for the oyster industry. But I would say that there's going to be a pretty strong pushback from our region on the net pen farming, and hopefully we can work to mitigate some of that. Maybe President Trump will give us a call and we can go talk with him one-on-one. So
Yeah. Well,
sort this out.
What's that?
Maybe we can go talk with President Trump one-on-one and sort some of this mess out.
Well, I wish you luck. I hope that if you do get to go, you will wear a mask. Sounds like they're having a hard time there in the White House.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we're thinking about you, and I hope you will keep us posted on anything that you hear going forward.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Keep up the great work.
Thanks,
Really
Ryan.
appreciate National Fishermen and everything they do.
Thank you so much, Ryan. We appreciate you and everything that all of these fishing associations have been doing during this shutdown. It's really great to see.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you again. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, Ryan.